So I'm going to deal with a very different message. I'm going to deal with people that are not normally dealt with or talked about in the Christmas story. In part because I think there's a lot of people in this room that feel like they are wallflowers. They're unseen, undetected, unknown. They're quiet, reserved. They blend. They're camouflaged. They don't carry a lot of weight. And I need you to understand that every component of the Christmas story is necessary for it to come to fruition. And every one of you are necessary in order for the end times to not only come, but to be fulfilled. So I want you to find value in how God built you and when God built you. And so we're going to look at some people that are not often discussed. So if you have your Bibles with you, in fact, let me see your Bibles. Physical Bibles, hold them up. Electronic Bibles, let me see those. Good job, guys. Turn with me, please, to Matthew chapter 2. Matthew chapter 2. I'm going to take a little bit of creative license on the first three because we're not given a ton of information about them. If you looked at my event on social media, thank you to those of you that are using it. Get with it if you're not using it presently. It takes a couple of clicks, a couple of moments. But I put on there that how we respond to what God says is indicative of how we feel about Him. How we respond to what God says is an indicator of how we really feel about Jesus. Too often, our feelings about Jesus is whether or not we get what we want from Him when we want it. But His timing is perfect. So in Matthew 2, beginning with verse 1, now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. And so he called together all the chief priests and scribes of the people and anxiously asked them where the Christ was to be born. They replied to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for this is that which was written by the prophet Micah. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not in any way least among the leaders of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly sent for the Magi and learned from them the exact time the star had first appeared. And then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search carefully for the child. And when you found him, report to me so that I too may come and worship him." And after hearing the king, they went their way, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went on before them, continually leading the way until it came and stood over the place where the young child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And after entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. And then after opening their treasure chests, they presented to him gifts fit for a king, gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned by God in a dream not to go back to Herod, the Magi left for their own country by another way. How many of you have dreams? How many of you have been recording those dreams? How many have not? Wow. Many times we can dismiss a dream because we don't find value in it, and we give credence or explanation, well, that was what I ate, or my stomach was sour, or I watched this movie, and so we dismiss dreams that we think caused or spawned our imagination. Here's something that I've learned about God. God is not limited in how he speaks to me. And so he will use things that I think of that I think are random thoughts to spur me on into something he wants me to deal with. God has used in my life TV commercials, conversations, memories of a loved one, events that have happened, dreams as a kid that are revisited to me as an adult. On and on and on and on I can go. There's no limit to the things that God will use. In fact, I didn't even know until last Thursday when Leslie was here, and I have this thing that I've been doing for years, and I thought it odd. Sometimes when I'm in a conversation, I've noticed some people look down at my hand and my finger's moving. And I don't even understand this, but I'll write words that stand out to me. So even in a conversation when somebody says something, if a particular word seems emboldened to me, I write it with my finger. And I thought, God, that's an odd habit. Then I found myself, when I'm watching a movie or something at home, the same thing would happen in the script. And I would hear a word and it would embolden to me, and I think, and it would annoy me. So I'd find some old piece of mail or something, I'd start writing down the words. One word here, 5-10 minutes later, another word there. By the end of that movie or that show, I've got an envelope full of words, and if you go back and look at those words tell a story. And I thought, this is bizarre. I better not tell nobody, they're going to think I'm really, really weird. And then I get here last Thursday, and Leslie was writing down words before the meeting. And one of the words happened to be one of the prophetic words I gave her before I gave her the prophetic word. So I thought, okay, God, if you're doing something weird in me, then obviously you're doing it weird in her too, so I can handle two being weird instead of one. But it validated me just a little. You don't hear anything I'm saying at all. Anybody else do that same thing where words pop and you go, something about that? Nobody else? Okay, 2 or 3 of you. So I would just encourage you, write them down. So watch this. I was on my way to a meeting this last week, and the Lord started giving me a download. And I've told you before that when the Lord gives you something, you better write it down quick, because sometimes if you forget it, then you can't go back. So I'm driving, I'm looking through the truck. I can't find a piece of mail. I can't find my notebook. I can't find anything. And so I'm sitting there chiding myself, saying, I need a notebook that its entire job description is to stay in the truck. I need a truck notebook. So that way, I don't care if it's chicken scratch. You know what I'm saying? Just go over and just write something in there, but at least it jogs my memory. So I get to the meeting, hour and a half meeting or so, get done, and on the way out, the guy goes, hey, listen, the staff heard you were coming. I don't know what's in this, but here's a gift for you. So I open up the bag, pull out the tissue paper, and there's a hat, embossed hat with their business name on it. And then there was a box, and I open up the box, there's a brand new notebook. And it's one of those lay flat notebooks, you know what I'm saying? That don't, when you're trying to open it, kind of flip flop. No, this one lays flat. And I'm like, ha ha! So I open it while I'm going down the road, it lays flat, it's not flopping all over the place. May mean nothing to you. I'm just saying, words matter. I don't know who that's for. That's all free. So the first bit of information that we see here in Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, is we see that the visitors were magi, whatever you want to call them, the mags. And so where are they from? They're from the east. So this doesn't give us a whole lot to go on. East is a big area. But it can help us figure out a little bit more detail where they come from. So that word magi comes from the ancient Persian word magano, and that is a religious caste of the Zoroastrian religion. So this not only tells us that they're from the eastern part of the world, but also probably from eastern Persia, which is probably modern-day Iran. But they also were priests in a different religion altogether. So this word, I'm going to booger it, Zoroastrianism. Ooh, that was good. Did that good. So it's simplified. That word means the search for truth over lies. The search for truth over lies. So these priests recognized Jesus as the ultimate truth. How do I know? Because they dropped everything that they were doing and everything that they were over, left their responsibilities to go west to find Jesus. The Zoroastrian priests were accomplished astrologers. And that was considered to be the science of the time. And so it's super surprising that they decided to make their journey, not super surprising rather, make their journey based on a star. We find that in verse 2. So it's also important to note that because their home is in the east, not the north, not the south, not the west, if you notice throughout the Bible, anytime somebody's moving east, it's a metaphor for moving away from God. And conversely, if they're moving west, that is an indication they're moving towards God. Just a few examples. You guys remember the story of Adam and Eve in Genesis? Yes. In the Garden of Eden, they were eastward in Eden. Remember that. So God placed angels to guard the entrance of the garden in the east. And since they were physically with God in the garden, in order to get close to him, they had to move west. When Cain killed Abel, he was banished even further east than the rest of his family. In other words, he moved farther away from God. How many of you know that in your past, when you've done some bad stuff, you didn't move closer to God? Many times we moved farther away from God. We went more eastern than east, okay? So the entrance even to the old tabernacle faced east, which forced the people to go west in order to enter the temple. So if the wise men were from the east, according to verse 1, and they had to travel west in order to meet the Messiah, they were traveling physically, yes, but how many would also agree this was a spiritual journey? This was a spiritual journey. So as they traveled east to west, they were getting closer to the presence of the Lord. This is something that I, in recent weeks and months, have felt even more pronounced. You know, this whole year I've been praying, God, don't let me miss you. Don't let me miss what you're saying, what you're doing, where you're going, what you're about. If you're messing with somebody's life, let me see it. God, don't let me miss you. And should you come back in the year 2024, God, don't let me miss that either, right? I want to be on the train, you know what I mean? And so that's been my prayer all year long. But I really believe, see, I feel a witness even now talking about it. I really believe as we move into 25, my focus is going to shift not just on not missing him, but it's going to be focused singularly upon the presence of God. I have to have the presence. I don't want to leave without the presence. I don't want to go to work without the presence. I don't want to pray for somebody without the presence. I don't want to talk to people without the presence. I don't want to eat without the presence. I don't want anything without the presence. And I'm not talking about presence that you open. I'm talking about presence that you enjoy the person's presence. It's been said repeatedly that people will not remember so much what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. I want that with God. I want to look back and realize I came to the altar heavy and I got up light. I came to him down and depressed and I left encouraged. The presence really is the changing room, if I can call it that. You guys old enough to remember the original Superman? Where did he change? Telephone booth. The presence of God is like the telephone booth. We go in one way, and we come out another. We walk in normal, we walk out supernatural. Y'all ain't catching any of this yet. It's the changing room. It's where God dresses us in our heavenly garment, not just a physical one. That was a good illustration. I think I'll keep that one. Verse 3 tells us that there were people, these magi, they were fairly well known. How do we know that? Because they got an immediate audience with the king. You got to be fairly well known in order to have an audience with the king. It also says that all of Jerusalem was disturbed by their story, which means they were famous enough for whatever they were dealing with that the whole city knew, the whole nation knew. Have you noticed that famous people don't go anywhere without an entourage? How many of you have ever watched Trump go from one place to another? There's like 7 or 8 cars, right? You got the beast in the middle. You got 2 or 3 up front. You got 3 or 4 in the back. And when he gets out the door, not only is there somebody opening that door, which, by the way, that door is about that thing. Anyway, he's opening the door, and when he gets out, there's an entourage in front of him, around him, and behind him everywhere he goes. Imagine that with these magi. Only their entourage was not 8 cars. It was about 300 people. So you got 3 magi, each bringing about 3. You got 900 people. They didn't book a flight. They didn't buy a train ticket. They didn't take motor vehicles. How many of you, whenever you go traveling somewhere, you know you're going to be gone a week? Your car is mostly filled with baggage. Huh? I have to caution my wife. See, she walked out. I can talk about her anytime she walked out that door. It's free for all, okay? So we're going somewhere just for a few days, 2 or 3 nights. And she'll want 2 suitcases and a bag. I'm like, what? No. Oh, no. I am not renting a trailer to take your stuff. We're going to be gone 2 nights, 1 bag. Oh, I can't do it. 1 bag. This is 3 magi with 900 people. Can you imagine the luggage? Oh, watch this. No McDonald's, no Burger Queen, no taco smell. There's none of that. So they got to carry their food. Oh, man, can you imagine? They got to carry their food. They got to carry their clothing. All this stuff. 900 people. It probably took them months just to schedule the trip, much less implement it. Oh, by the way, it was about 1,000 miles from where they were at to Bethlehem. 1,000 miles is roughly from my door to my father-in-law's door in Tucson, Arizona. And it takes us 12 to 14 hours boogity-boogity down the road in order to get there in a motor vehicle. Still so long that sometimes I got to pull over and take a little cat nap. These guys are on camels going the same distance. Remember, these guys were probably most likely even kings. That's really important as we move forward, because the whole reason I'm talking about the preparation of the trip. Can you imagine prepping to go to Dallas for a weekend? And all you're going to do is stay in a hotel, eat a steak, and go shopping. That's all you're going to do, right? Think how much preparation there has to be. Somebody's got to watch the dog. Somebody's got to take care of the cats. Somebody's got to make sure the mails got picked up. Come on. Got to make sure the lights come on at a certain time so that somebody appears to be home, or have somebody house sit. Got to make sure that we have the tire pressure checked on the vehicle, that the oil change has been done, that the car is cleaned out so it can hold all of our luggage. Need to make sure we have enough money, make sure that the bank has been notified so when we go to try to get gas, it doesn't think that it's fraud. All this preparation that we're doing just to go away for a couple of days. And that, whether you understand it or not, is still an act of faith. You're doing all of these things because you fully expect you're going to Dallas. This is a train of about 1,000. And they're trying to get everybody together to leave at the same time. Can you imagine being out there on your camel trying to honk the horn? Meep, meep, let's go! So this whole journey had to be a journey of faith, because this was not going to be a weekend. This was going to be not weeks. This was going to be months. Faith had to be a lonely road. Faith had to be a lonely road. Let me talk to you in the room right now. Some of you right now, it's like, I don't know where I'm going. I have nobody to follow. Nobody's been down where I'm called to be. I feel lost. They didn't have Garmin or GPS in the day, but they had the stars. So all they had to do was look up and go, yeah, I'm still going the right direction. Yep, let's keep going. Just follow that one right there. So they had their own GPS of sorts, right? But I don't believe that there was a highway from Persia to Bethlehem. I believe they had to make their own road. We are so entitled that we believe we can't get from where we're at to where God's called us to be unless somebody has paved the way for us. What if you are called by God to be the bulldozer that knocks down the trees that are in the way to get from point A to point B so that those that are coming behind you will have a way to go? What if you are the trailblazer? You say, well, we're in the end days. There ain't no more trails to be blazed. Are you kidding me? There ought to be more trails blazed in this season than all the seasons prior. It is a road of faith. It takes great faith to step out and go where you've never been and where you see no evidence of other people being before either. So finally we get to verses 9, 10, and 11. And that shows where Jesus was. It was not the stable. They did not show up at the inn. The star dropped over a house. Everybody say house. And Joseph was not there. How do we know? They saw the child with his mother Mary. They did not say they saw the child with his mother Mary and his father or stepfather or bonus dad, Joseph. So we have to assume that Joseph had found employment. Been there long enough to do that. So Jesus at this point is probably somewhere between a few months and 2 years of age. Why do you suppose when King Herod sent the Magi, he said, kill all the infants 2 years of age and below? Because that's the zone Jesus was in, because he didn't know. See, I see light bulbs going, oh. Then in verse 11, they bring 3 gifts. And in the passage that I read, they opened up chests. This was not a gift. This was a gifts. It's important that we understand that they came this great way with great anticipation and great purpose in order to give something substantial. So tradition tells us that the Magi were actually kings themselves, and kings did not easily give up wealth, especially to another king. For a king to give up wealth to another king, he's saying, you the man. That's what he's saying. He's saying, you bigger and badder than I am. So I'm going to bring you a present. And you got 3 of them with a 1,000-person train showing up at a house and dumping loads on him. Why? Because they, even as a baby, recognized he's king. So what did they give him? Each gift had a meaning. Gold is obvious. It's the currency of kings. They were saying, you're the king of the world. Frankincense, it's something that's typically used in religious ceremonies. Even today, Catholics and Orthodox, some Protestant churches will use a frankincense incense in their services. So by giving frankincense, they were saying, we recognize you not only as being king, but also as being God. And then you have myrrh. Myrrh was used in that day as an embalming oil, used regularly in funerals until the mid-15th century. So by giving him myrrh, they were also acknowledging that his death is the only thing that would save the world. The Magi recognized who Jesus was and who he would be. And so they left long before, maybe long before, because I don't know how long the trip took. But they may have left before Jesus was even born and got there months after he was born, because it was a journey of faith. See, what sometimes we want to say, well, Lord, it's just not the right timing. Why is it not the right timing? Because everything is not yet prepared for my arrival. What if your arrival is the key that kickstarts everything else into happening? What if you're the linchpin that starts the motor instead of the motor being started for you to show up and enjoy it? What if we're the ones? How many's ever seen the old tractors that are started by by a shotgun shell. How many's ever seen those? That's an interesting thing to watch. No buckshot in it, but the charge is there. They screw off the cap, they put it in, they screw it back up, they get everything primed and ready to go, they take a hammer and boom, you hear the motor goes. What if you are called by God to be the shotgun shell that has to explode in order to kickstart God's plan in others? What if the whole mechanism, the whole engine of God's plan for the next season starts with you popping off? What if that's your only job? Is to ignite the thing. All of us are on a journey of faith.